Ruby Rose Yepez of Southern California Edison. Ruby Rose currently supports Southern California Edison as a senior advisor, assisting developers and builders and promoting decarbonization programs and resources. She is very active in the building industry, currently serving as a planning commissioner for the city of South El Monte and a former board member for the U.S. Green Building Council Los Angeles chapter and the California Association of Building Energy Consultants. Welcome, Ruby Rose. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, well, thank you so much, Sean. I'm so happy to be there. I mean, I'm sad that my first zero carbon retreat is virtual, but I look forward to being there in person. And I'm so happy to be here with such amazing talent and fellow peers. I mean, Will went right before me and Lance is right after me. So I'm sandwiched right in the middle of two amazing influencers in my career. So and you know, I'm going to dive into the environmental and social justice. So I'm glad that that was the last question that we kind of dove in on. I know a lot of people have been covering programs, but I kind of want to take a step back and really talk about the work that we're doing in our outreach to working with the local community and really understanding their needs in this space. You know, I'm really trying to do my part as a planning commissioner to influence this in my housing element and general plan as we update it. And I really encourage people in this space right now to get involved with committees and boards and commissions to put the word out there and create the influence, because you know, if we're not doing it, then who is? So my little plug to get involved on that. So needless to say, you know, Edison has been doing a lot of work within the decarbonization space, and I will touch on some programs as I dive a little bit later, because I know Will kind of touched on that before, but I do kind of want to talk a bit about some other programs that we have going on in our outreach and how we're really connecting in with the community and really addressing the needs of our disadvantaged communities, because it's needless, you know, it's needless to say that these are the communities that are being the most impacted by climate change and the environmental injustices that are happening around us. So as part of the work that we're doing, and you know what, can you guys see my full screen, or is it the slides? Do I need to close this?
It's yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure you're not okay. Anyways, California SCE, sorry, obviously we have our goals in California to be carbon neutral by 2045, and so Edison has we initially had a white paper about our 2030 goals, and we have updated it to now align with California's goals of 2045. So SCE is committed to building, maintaining, and safely operating a reliable, resilient, clean, and affordable electric system for our communities that we serve. And we are a very progressive partner in achieving California's climate change adaptation and mitigation goals. And we are comprehensively assessing longer-term climate change risks, because there's a lot of risks as we're upgrading our grid to make our electrical assets, operations, and services more resilient. From a climate change mitigation perspective, SCE's Pathway 2045 actually lays out a feasible and economic route to realize California's greenhouse gas reduction goals, which are very aggressive. And so achieving carbon neutrality in California is at the forefront of what our goals are by 2045. As part of our adaptation efforts, which has been required and regulated by the Commission, SCE is conducting a vulnerability assessment, which is focused on the resiliency of its electrical system to longer-term climate change risks. We're actually calling this the Community Engagement Plan, or CEP, and it's meant to inform the actual vulnerability assessment process on the potential impacts of proposed adaptation options to increase SCE's electric system to be resilient for our most vulnerable and disadvantaged communities. So we are looking at that very heavily. Sorry, I have two computers going on here with my notes. Decarbonizing California's economy is only going to be successful if the transition remains affordable for all California consumers, including California's most vulnerable residents. And this climate engagement plan expands on our efforts to engage disadvantaged, vulnerable communities, which we're calling DVCs, regarding our climate risk assessments and adaptation options for the electricity system, to share information with these communities and understand their perspectives and concerns regarding these risks, as well as the opportunities and improvements that SD's adaptation investments will create for them. To avoid any economic disruption, we actually are allowing ample time for residences and businesses to be able to make the transition to the new clean technologies that a lot of people have been talking about today and yesterday, such as our EVs and rooftop solar, although there's an extensive amount of technologies that we now want to be implementing, and make sure that they're implementing it properly, because if it's not done right, then basically we're doing ourselves. So we want to make sure that they're making that transition in the right ways, and that they are able to conserve and reduce energy as they're doing it, and reduce their carbon footprint. Next one. So as I mentioned, there is the Clean Energy Access Working Group. And so this working group is the focus of the group is aimed to identify how to actually break down barriers to access clean energy solutions for both low income and disadvantaged communities. Sorry, excuse me. This is a space that was created for collaboration to support clean energy ideas, as well as networking amongst community-based organizations and partnership with them in order to improve clean energy solutions for their communities, because each one kind of has their own focus of what their community may need. The working group also is a forum to obtain ideas around topics such as PSPS awareness, since that's a big thing that Edison is working on, and climate adaptation in general. How are we really going to implement this, and what's the realistic timelines, and what are the realistic needs that they have in order for us to move this forward? And it initially started as an environmental justice working group, and then they renamed it to the Clean Energy Access Working Group. And in 2017, SCE and the Green Lining Institute actually co-convened the very first Clean Energy Access Working Group meeting, which had a diverse group of stakeholders consisting of environmental, community, and faith-based organizations that work together to develop clean energy projects that had a focus of environmental and social justice. The purpose of that working group was to create projects together, not to be working in silos, but actually to bring all of the work that they're doing cohesively and find solutions that would be applicable for all of those that are part of the group. So they have designed, planned, and implemented demonstration projects throughout our territory for those CDOs that have been involved. And over the last 2 years, SCE has reserved $500,000 of grant funding for community projects that are proposed from this working group. They actually, in order for them to get the funding, they do need to be considered an environmental or social justice community. So there is a process of actually identifying them as such. Out of this clean energy working group, so they actually came up with a program that's called Empower, and this is really the program that was designed to work with trusted community organizations to reach our customers and that are hardest to reach, and to educate and enroll them in, bill assistance programs or clean energy programs that they may or may not have known about before. And this program uses a unified approach that covers not just SCE's programs, but all federal, state, and local government and utility programs that would be applicable to them. So it does go beyond just what SCE's offerings are. We initially, Edison was the main sponsor for Empower, but since 2018, it has grown and now includes multiple sponsors and covers several service territories. So it has been extended to other areas such as LADWP. And to date, Empara has reached over 20,000 customers. So that's kind of a big step in reaching those customers that have been in the hard to reach areas, which typically are our disadvantaged communities. Right now, Liberty Hill is the organization that is managing the program or administering the program. And they are looking for more community-based organizations to help promote this program to their communities. So if you are in the know of any organizations that would benefit from this, please let me know and we'll find a way to get them enrolled. And lastly, more than half of the census tracts in Edison's territory are primarily low income and disadvantaged neighborhoods. So it was very, very important for us to take this proactive approach to actually reach these communities themselves. We were just talking about this. So here's your the Cal Enviro map that was mentioned earlier. As you can see, the lowest income and most environmentally impact communities are also the same communities where clean energy programs have the lowest uptake. So Empower has really helped us to increase the intake of customers participating in the program itself, which is great. So as I mentioned, the strategy behind Empower is to create partnerships and relationships with CBOs within our territory, and use these partnerships to successfully communicate the benefits of the programs. I know there could be, potentially cultural or language barriers when it comes to SCE's outreach to customers. So having community-based organizations who have the trust of the community be able to speak to the benefits of these types of programs has been really influential and has really moved the needle with getting these customers to participate in the programs. And some of the offerings for Empower include bill savings, home efficiency, free solar if they're eligible for it, home repair, clean vehicles, and alternative and shared mobility.
Hold on for just a second. Could you go back to that one?
Yes.
Free solar. So I have a SASH funded free solar array, and it was a big deal. And I think Justine was on here earlier, and we're just, she helped arrange it. Yeah, she's here probably. So is that funded? Are you doing that actively down in SoCal Edison right now?
I have to look into that. I think that SASH is still available. I know they've been doing a lot more of the multifamily, but I think that there may still be funds. I have to go back and double check because I do have it on my list of programs that we're offering still right now. So I have to see what the uptake was because I know that they were slowly starting to sunset the programs. So I have to go confirm if there's still funding available for that program itself.
Justine just wrote in saying SASH is sunsetting this year in SoCal Edison.
Yeah.
DAC-SASH is available in DACs statewide. DAC?
Yes.
Okay. Disadvantaged communities, and it's still funded. So
it's yes, but now primarily if you're going to be in a DAC area, then you can still get the funding for it.
That's excellent. I mean, it lowers utility bills so radically compared to any other strategy, really. I mean, it makes electricity.
as long as they know that they can't go crazy running or using a lot of energy in the evening time, because that's where I think people get hit the most. And so educating them on that as well, right? Making sure that they understand that just because you slap on solar doesn't mean that you're never going to have an electric bill. It means that during the day you can consume, but in the evening time you still have to be relatively conscious of how much you're using.
Thank you. Thank you. And Justine wrote something, she gave a link to it. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Justine. And I actually have recently gotten really involved with Active SGV, which is an organization in my territory who's part of Empower, and they've been just doing really amazing work. They recently did a study with UCLA on healthy homes, and it's needless to say the impact of having gas and use appliances in the home. And they were looking at a disadvantaged community out here in our area. So it was those, I love to talk about that study that they've been doing. So yeah, these CBOs are doing some great work. So, like I mentioned before, CBOs are very effective at reaching customers that are, in the frontline communities that are being directly impacted by these issues. Or those who are hit first and worst by industrial pollution, which I think, we can see basically all of the cities that exist off of freeways. I recently was exposed to some information on how freeways are developed and just, how they're rerouted through communities based off of socioeconomic status. And it's really saddening to see that, just the impact that it's caused to our communities. 83% of all households reached by the program were located in DACs, so that's great, of which we're in the 90th to 100th percentile of impacted communities. So, the people that they've been able to reach are those that are being the most impacted by climate change. And so it's good to see that they obviously didn't have the resources to educate them on this, and now using the CBOs to disseminate the information and doing the outreach has been really successful in helping to make that change in the transition. And the households that were reached were very interested in green programs and incentives. So, I know there was a big fear about greenwashing and them not wanting to participate in programs, but it was more that they were not exposed to it. So now that they are, they've definitely shown a high amount of interest and want to participate in the program. So that's really great. And I think it also is, my background was in the affordable housing industry, and these tenants or residents are very well aware of their energy consumption and will go to all means to find ways to reduce it, because every penny counts for them. And so them being interested in the programs is very important. But it kind of goes back to what was mentioned before. Working with landlords is a huge issue. So how do we work with them and get them to want to be able to make these changes for their residents? So I'm definitely interested in continuing that conversation on that, because I think that's a huge barrier that we have to work through.
I just want to note how startling that is to see that 58% of eligible people for care aren't in it, which means that that's, in a sense, like super majority. That tells you more there's a failure, not a success, and therefore they're exposed to much higher rates than they're eligible. Like, that's just so sad.
Yeah.
To me, that
Yeah.
speaks to, like, the importance of solar getting on people's roofs, since the programs aren't working.
Yeah, well, I think it's more, again, going back to what Empower stands for, right? It's about using these community-based organizations who have the trust of the community and can actually go, I think there's a lot of community members, given their, I'm going to say residential status, may or may not want to open the door to somebody coming from a utility company, but they will open the door and have a conversation with somebody who is from a community-based organization who looks like them, talks like them, and they can totally relate to. So being able to have somebody go out and infiltrate the communities that they can't reach is what's really, helping the uptake of them getting involved and educating them in these programs. So hopefully the care has increased as far as how many customers are participating in it. I have to go back and get those data points, but it really is a barrier in the communication and outreach of how do we reach our customers. for them.
So thank you for your good work. Obviously, you guys are doing better now.
Yes.
I mean to condemn it. It's distressing, and I'm so glad that you're working
Yeah.
harder and more successfully. Good on you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's with any program, right, where we are actually any program in general where we try to actually roll out, how do we disseminate the information? It's usually the people that are in the know who continue to be in the know, and those who are not in the know continue to not be in the know. We need to change that up. So out of this Empower program, we actually ended up creating this 2020 community-based connection program. And this was to help increase the awareness and educate customers on rates and other programs that we have. And so just like you were saying, the CARE program, this is really meant to educate them on, this is a program that you can participate in, you're eligible for it. And there's, it's as easy to get enrolled into it. The other big thing is time of use, right? All of our IOU customers are getting now transferred over to time of use, and they may not understand how that works. And so educating them on, when now are the peak periods versus non-peak periods, and what their actual rates are going to be and look like, so that they're not getting any surprises for these types of families, right? You're usually counting every penny. And if your utility bill is off by, $10, $50, $100, then it can really throw off a family's budget. And the repercussion of them trying to catch up is much more extensive for them. So being able to educate them so that they don't go through that is going to be really important. And so this is some of the resources and collateral that has been developed based off of that community-based connection program. So we're providing the information for these organizations to extend out to our customers as they're informing them and updating them on the programs and rates. One of the biggest projects that we have going right now that has really put a focus on disadvantaged communities is our San Joaquin Valley pilot, which is in conjunction with PG&E and SoCal Gas. It's a collaboration that really focuses on decarbonizing that community. It exposes, or the program was developed to provide affordable clean energy solutions to residents of the pilot communities who lack access to natural gas. So all of these customers, for the most part, are on propane, and trying to swap out propane. And in the homes that have propane, the offering was for heat pumps. And for the homes that had natural gas, then it was to upgrade their appliances with a tankless or a high efficient system. So it wasn't 110% fully electric, but we had to play within the realm of what we had. So within the pilot, we had 100 households in California City so there was 3 cities. So within California City, there was 100 households. Within Decorah, there was 222, and within West Goshen, 127. So those were the target. There was 15 million that was proposed for the budget to be able to run the program. And again, this included updating their systems to heat pump, HVAC systems, heat pump water heaters, induction cooktops, and electric dryers. And so they did have a number of the customers that they reached out to participate, but there was still some significant barriers. This program obviously aligned with our Pathway 2045, which was to electrify at least 1/3 of our customers. But I'm going to jump the implementation strategy. I'm actually going to talk about the barriers. So there was bill protection for those that were going to be participating in the program, because they obviously needed to adjust to what their energy usage was going to be if they were going from propane to electricity, and also what their bill was going to look like, and be able to plan accordingly for that. So there was bill protection offered for this, but there were various barriers that actually existed for that were similar to what our low-income programs also experience, which is really the impact of the participation in the pilot. There was a number of unwilling property owners that had bad experience from other low-income programs, and so they were really skeptical about participating. But one of the primary barriers for this program was actually mobile home customers. They really did not want to participate in the program because they had to pull a permit. And so within those mobile homes, they identified that these communities were, a lot of the mobile home owners ended up finding out that they were not part of that mobile home park. And so it triggered a lot of issues with those types of customers. And I think that was one of the biggest barriers, was being able to work with those types of customers. In addition to that, many of the mobile homes required a lot of repairs, which would be very, very costly for the homeowner to actually switch from propane to electric appliances, which also included upgrading their main panel. And in order to upgrade the main panel, the mobile homes would require trenching to run a new conduit and wiring from the service drop pole to the mobile home main panel. And so that type of funding was not being offered through the program, and these customers did not have the funds to be able to actually pay for that also. So that was a pretty significant barrier that existed for this program.
May I ask,
Mhm.
what was their service? Was it 50 amps or was it 100 amps? So, do you know, like what was the size of the panel that had to be upsized?
You
Rom
know
and
what? I'm not quite sure on that one, Sean. I'd have to go back and ask. I don't know the details of that one specifically.
I bet you they're 50 amp panels. Because this,
I mean, for mobile home, I would assume so. Yeah.
yeah.
And just really quickly, I know some people have kind of given more information on this, but I'm just going to touch on this really briefly on the programs that we are offering right now. So Edison actually just launched our Charge Ready 2 program. Well, this is the second phase of our Charge Ready program, which does have a focus on multifamily within the new construction rebate, but also in particular to the disadvantaged communities that is specific to our turnkey installation, which is specifically for multifamily property sites that are located within DAC communities. So that does have a portion. And I would say ongoing forward, most of our programs are going to be very focused on DAC communities. We actually, we just kind of got the green light from the commission on our clean energy homes pilot, which was kind of the forefront of that initially. And so we are in the process of developing it out and laying out all of the program details. The caveat, unfortunately, with this program is that it basically has to be, it can only be offered to customers that do not lie within any other IOU territory. So if you are if you are an SCE customer and you're also a SoCal Gas customer, you would not be eligible for the program. So it can only be within the area of Long Beach, Catalina Island, and some areas within Inyo and Mono counties. There is also another competing program called Build that if you are eligible for that program, then you cannot be eligible for this one either. So no double dipping of programs there. The incentive offering is roughly about $4,000 per single family unit or $2,500 per multifamily unit. So the amount of your incentive is basically the dollar value of the life cycle emission reductions that developers would be designing to. So that's really looking at the reduction of your carbon footprint with the buildings. And the plan is to have this online and launched by Q3 next year. So keep an eye out for that. This goes back to the SASH conversation we were having. So we do have some low income solar programs. We have MASH, SOMA, DAC SASH now, since SASH is going to be sunsetting end of this year. So these are the ones that we have primarily for them. And then with regards to battery storage, we do have our residential equity resiliency program in which you are eligible for this, but you do have to meet a number of requirements. So you would have to have been affected by 2 PSPS events or live in a high fire zone, as well as live in a deed restricting housing situation. So it could be both either multifamily or single family. There are some other, also if you're participating in one of the SGIP programs for solar, then you can also be eligible for this as well. So that does help with the DAC community. And then also coming up, this is not just for Edison, but we are, closely connected with the work that's being done on both of these programs. So we do have the CEC's build program, which is meant to be launched in Q4 of this year, which does for the first few years is going to be only offered exclusively for those that are in low income or disadvantaged communities. And then we also have our statewide program, which is now going to be led by PG&E. So this formerly was our California Advanced Homes program. Now that it's being led by PG&E, it's now called the California Energy Smart Homes All Electric Residential Program. Wow, that is a mouthful. And it's going to be administered by TRC, who used to administer the CAP program for PG&E before. And so this one does also align with SB 350 of doubling statewide energy efficiency savings by 2030. As well as overcoming the barriers of disadvantaged communities participating in programs. So they do have a heavy focus on that as well in that program. And that's it. Those are all of our programs and those that are coming up and the work that we're doing to support our disadvantaged communities and customers.
Congratulations. That's really impressive. That was more than I imagined. I got surprised left and right. That's awesome. You guys are really taking a swing at this. That's great.
Yeah, they're doing some good stuff and I'm really happy to be here to support it as well. So if anybody wants to take this into their community, let me know. Happy to support.
Oh yeah, head on over there. Thank you, Ruby Rose.